Today I'm going to show you how to make a super cute little wall banner featuring a tiny baby handprint. This would make a wonderful gift for the mom of a new baby, and I actually made them for all of my son's grandmothers this past Mother's Day. Babies' hands are so tiny that I feel like you have to document them while you can. And once they get a bit bigger, they can measure their hands against it and see how much they've grown. This video is part of an exciting collab with a bunch of my fellow kin community creators. Brooke and Summer over at the Girls with Glasses show both recently had babies. We're celebrating with a playlist full of creative ideas for parents with new little ones. And I'm wearing my sushi sweatshirt because I know that was the first thing I ate after having my baby. Read the video description below for a list of materials you'll need to make this project, and here's how to do it. Start out by carefully tracing the baby's hand onto a piece of paper. This can be quite difficult, as you can see here. I actually ended up using my 1-year-old's handprint back from when he was much smaller because the day I filmed this, he was not interested in sitting still for 30 seconds. I thought it would be cute to have the hand surrounded by a heart shape, so I drew that and cut it out of paper to make a template. So the next step is to pin the heart and the handprint to some felt and cut around them. I just wanted to mention that banners like this are super customizable, so many of the design-related steps are optional. I'll quickly show you what I did, but feel free to change up the shapes, colors, words, or just go for something much simpler if that's what you'd prefer. Center the felt handprint onto the heart and pin it down. Then thread some embroidery floss onto a needle and tie a knot at the end. Using whatever stitch you'd like, sew around the edges of the hand, attaching it to the heart. I'm using a simple running stitch for this step because I like the way the dashed line looks. If you're new to sewing or you need a refresher, you can check in the video description for a list of links to more detailed tutorials for all of the stitches I'm using. When you get back around to where you started, flip it over and tie a few knots so it won't come undone. Next, you'll need some fabric to use for the banner. I just chose this off-white linen cross-stitch fabric I had around. Stretch the fabric onto an embroidery hoop to make the next few steps a bit easier. Place the felt heart into the middle of the hoop and pin it down to the banner fabric. Now, in any way you'd like, sew around the edges of the heart in order to attach it to the banner fabric. I'm using split stitch here, which I just started learning how to do. It makes a nice thick line and I like the way it looks. Keep sewing until you make it back to where you started, then remove the pins. If you'd like to add some words to your banner, such as a quote or the baby's name, sketch them onto the fabric using a disappearing ink marker, which you can find in the Sewing Notions section of a fabric store. I'm writing "oh so small." Then using some embroidery floss, carefully stitch over the letters. I decided to continue using split stitch to tie it into the outline on the heart, but back stitch also works quite well for stitching letters. Tie a double knot on the back of the piece so your stitches stay put. Once your letters are all filled in, you're ready to take it out of the hoop and put the banner together. I was kind of improvising here, so I'm sorry if it's tough to see exactly what I'm doing. Fold the fabric so you double the area under your design, giving you 2 layers to cut through, then cut out a banner shape around your design. Make sure to leave extra fabric around the edges and at the top so you'll have room for the seams and a sleeve at the top where we'll hang it. I used a rough template I drew and cut around that, but it was a little hard to see, sorry. So now that you should have 2 of your banner shape, one with the design on it, flip the back piece down onto the design so the right sides of the fabric are facing in and the wrong sides are facing out. Pin them together, then sew along the edges of the banner, leaving the top edge open. I'm using a sewing machine, but you could hand sew this using some regular thread if you don't have one. Once that's done, clip V-shapes out of the corners, being careful not to cut into the stitches, and turn the banner right side out. Iron down the edges and corners to flatten them and make it easier to sew around the side and bottom edges one more time. This time your stitches will be visible, so try to keep an even distance between the edge of the banner and this top stitching. Lastly, we'll need to fold down the top towards the back of the banner to make a sleeve for a small dowel. Pin it in place and sew in a straight line along the unfinished edge, making sure that you've left enough room to slip the dowel through. We're so close to being done! All you have to do now is slide a dowel into that sleeve and tie a string to either side of it so you can hang up the banner. Trim the excess string, and here is the finished banner. When my son was born, I really wanted something like this to remember just how little he was. I'm super happy with the way it turned out, and I love how versatile this project is. Once you learn how to make it, you could really apply these skills to create any kind of banner you can imagine. If you make one of these banners for a mom in your life, even if it's you, post a picture on social media. I'm Lauren FairWX on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and I would love to see how it came out. Now that I've shown you how to make this, definitely check out our new baby playlist to see what everyone else made for Book and Summer, and get some ideas for things to do for someone you know who just had a baby. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.